Hey, and welcome back. We're going to be learning to style some web forms in this lecture. This is really important because forms are super common on the web and you need to know how to style them properly, how to make them look sexy. I like making things look sexy on the web, so I will show you how to do that. Create a new HTML file called forms.html and add the basic structure with the title, styling forms, and hook up that stylesheet.css. That's what we want to do. And I'm just gonna add a level 1 heading in here, just styling forms. And actually, we're gonna go ahead and add a div with the ID of container in here as well. And I believe there's already a style in our stylesheet.css that styles this. Let's see what that looks like before we go ahead and call it that, just in case it doesn't look very good. Okay, so no, we don't have a style for container, which is okay. We'll just add our own. That's great. Perfect. So we got container in there, styling forms, and we're just going to get started here. If you got this HTML up and running, we're going to get started and we're going to code an HTML form. So form, ooh, there you go. And in form, we're going to do a series of things. Let's do the good old fashioned field set. And in the field set, you need to have a legend. Now, you don't have to do the field set and the legend, but it's just I'm showing you all the elements available to you within the form tag. So I'm just going to say contact us. Pretty standard. It's looking like pretty haggard so far. Good. Good. We want it to look bad because we want to make it look good with CSS. Okay, label. Let's add a label and an input here. This type will be text, and the ID of this will be, let's say, form-name. Great. Okay, now we're going to need this label to say your name, and for the ID, form name. So we have good usability. Check it out. If you click on this, it focuses here in the input. Great. Cool. Let's just copy that and paste that a couple more times like so. And we're going to say form email, your email. Do you guys remember Strongbad from Homestar Runner? Or the Homestar Runner from Homestar Runner? Remember him? He would always say email or something like that. I don't know. I probably made a fool of myself there. But if you know Homestar Runner, then you know that joke. Okay, yo email, form email. Great, and we're going to make that type email. Cool. And there we go. We're going to save that. Check it out. Boom. There it is. Looking pretty bad. Good. Form name, email. Let's say form, I don't know, address. Your address. And we'll say type will be just text. Good enough. Form address. Let's add another one here. Let's say form phone for phone number. Your phone number. And this can be type tel for telephone. And then form phone. Okay, now we're going to add something a little different down here. We're going to add the label and a let's see, text area. Cool. And we're going to say, send a message. Okay, text area. We're going to say this is the ID of form message. And then we're going to make this ID say for form message. There we go. Okay, so now we got our elements. Let's just check it out. There we go. We got all the elements kind of laid out there, and of course it looks terrible. We're actually going to add another input here for submit because we got to. And let's make the value say send message. There we go. So now we have a basic HTML form that has no styling whatsoever. This is just how it looks by default, and as you can see, it's totally unusable. If you put this in front of a user, they have no idea what to do. They think something was broken. They think you're giving them a virus, and you probably are because you are not being very considerate by making such a very ugly web form. So let's change that. Go to your stylesheet.css, scroll on down to the bottom, And we're going to add a section here specifically for the Styling Web Forms lecture. Great. In here, we're going to just select form. Okay. Now, actually, we're going to select container because I believe we added that ID and we want to do something here. So let's say width 500 pixels, margin 0, auto, and that should center that up. Let's make it wider. Let's make it 600, like that. That looks good. Cool. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add something here. We're gonna start by adding just kind of we're gonna style the inputs. So actually, we're not gonna just select the form. You can do a descendant selector like this, but I'm just gonna select input like that, just because I don't need to be so specific. Inputs are pretty much always gonna be within a form, so I don't need to be that specific. Input. I want all inputs to have a specific style. Now, some inputs are not like text inputs. They're like the submit button or other types of inputs. So I'm going to be a bit more specific, and you could select an attribute in CSS by doing this. So you got the element, and then in square braces or brackets, you put type equals text. So that would give you the attribute type equals text. So it's going to select the input with the type of text. And just to prove to you that this worked, I'm just going to give it a border solid 1 pixel red. And there we go. So anything that is input with the type of text, it will get a border solid red. So there we go. Now what we're going to do is remove that, and we're going to select a grouping selector, and I'm just going to put them on new lines because you can do that. It doesn't break anything. I'm going to also do the type of tell. And I believe I want to also select email, input type, email. There we go. And we're going to select the input type. Actually, it's not input, it's the text area. I want these to have similar styles. There's going to be a bunch of styles here that can apply to all of them. Let's say they are width. No, let's go for padding. 10 pixels. Let's see how that looks. Okay, so now we got some padding here. They're really fat looking. And we're going to say border, solid, 1 pixel. Let's go for 333. And move that to highlight there. There we go. So it's there. It's actually, I don't like how dark it is. So let's make it a bit lighter. Let's go for something like 454545. And there we go. It's a little bit lighter. Cool. And I'm going to make them all display block. So there we go. It's starting to clean up a little bit there because they were all display inline before. Now I want them all to be a width of 50%. Let's see what happens. There we go. That looks a bit better. And now I am going to, well, let's see what it looks like. What's the text looks like in here? It looked like Brad Hussey. I want to change the font. So let's say font size. Let's go to 14 pixels. Color. Oh, let's do something like 777. Font family. I'm going to go for a monospace style font. So I'm going to say Monaco and then monospace. So Brad Hussey, cool. And I'm actually going to text transform uppercase. Make it all uppercase. There we go. Brad Hussey, Brad at youdon'tneedmyemail.com. And I'm not going to type my real address. Phone number would be like 12345678790. Hello. This is a message. So you could see that the form is kind of cleaning up here, but it's still kind of jammed in there. Doesn't look very good. Let's make it look a little bit nicer. Let's select the form itself. And I'm going to say padding 40 pixels. There we go. In fact, I don't want to style the form. I want to style the field set because the field set has just kind of a border around here, and that's what I want to do. So I'm going to change this to field set. There we go. And now I'm going to change the border of the field set. I don't really like the default one, so I'm going to say border solid 1 pixel AAA. Let's see if that works. Cool. I'm going to move that highlight again. So that's cleaning up. Nice. And I want to change a couple things here. I want to actually change the background of this. I'm going to use a background image on this form here because why not? We have the images folder that you downloaded, and I'm just going to use like, I don't know, blue background. Let's use blue background. Cool. So in the field set, I'm going to say background URL, images, and blue background. There we go. I'm going to say it's already default top left repeat, so I'm just going to leave it like this. There we go. It's coming together a little bit nicer there. The contact us is kind of half and half. The legend here is kind of half and half up in the, kind of a weird corner there. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to make it look a bit cleaner. So let's select the field set legend. So the legend within a field set to be a little bit more specific, just because we can. And I'm going to say background white. Okay. And padding 10 pixels. And let's make it the same as the field set. So it kind of blends a little bit nicer. Let me move this. There we go. Okay, so that looks better to me. I like that. And I want to just move the form away from the header here. It's a little too close. So I'm just going to add a form selector here and just say margin top. Let's go with 40 pixels. There we go. That moves it away from the header a little bit. It looks a bit better to me. Okay, and let's make these inputs and the labels, let's space them out a little bit. And let's also let's do something a little fun with the labels. So I'm going to go ahead and say each of these inputs here have a margin. Let's just say 20 pixels top and bottom and 0 on the left and right. And so that should, okay, that looks a little funny actually. I take that back. Just 20 pixels on the bottom, 0, 0, 20. Okay, that's much better. Now I'm going to select these labels and I'm going to make the font size smaller, and I'm gonna kind of give it like a background color and play around with that. Okay, let's go under here. Let's say label. And we're going to say font size 12 pixels, font text transform. We're going to go uppercase. And background, let's go with URL. Let's select the red background. And it's going to repeat top left anyway, so I'm just going to leave that. Okay, we're getting there. I want to make the label a display block because currently it's display inline and it's just wrapping around the contained width of each of the elements here. So I actually want to have it be the full width, the same as the element, the input. And so now if I said display block, it's actually going to span the full width of the container. I don't want that. I want it to span the width, the same width as the input, which is 50%. So I'm just going to say width 50%. There we go. And I'm going to change the padding. I want some more padding in that element there. I'm going to say 10 pixels on all sides, and I want the color white. There we go. Now you might be wondering what happened here. Wasn't it 50%? And then all of a sudden we get this extra part of the element just sitting outside. This is clearly wider than 50%. What happened? Well, when you add padding to the box, it actually adds to the width. It increases the width. It doesn't stay contained within the element. It actually makes the element bigger. It makes it a bit more bloated, so to speak. So what you have to do in these cases is calculate the proper size when you include the width. So because we're using a mix of pixels and percent, it's a little bit confusing. So what would probably be better for me is if I use the same units. Instead of percent and pixel, I use percent and percent or pixel and pixel. So because I want to have the width be exactly 50%, I should probably make the padding a percentage as well. So let's just do something like 2% on all sides, and let's see what that looks like. It looks about the same as 10 pixels. Great. But now I have to account for the extra that I need to trim this off here. So all you need to do is calculate the extra width that you added on. So because you added 2% on the left and 2% on the right, that means you've added an extra 4% to the total width, which means the width is actually 54%. So to account for that, to adjust, you just need to take off 4%, which is obviously 46%. And that will give us exactly 50% with our labels. And one last thing that I want to try here is I want to remove the top border of the input, so it doesn't cut off between so it doesn't have such a hard cut between the label background and the white background. I kind of want to just make that a little bit, a little less harsh, just to try something out here. So all we really need to do is say border top none, and there you go. Now we only have borders on the left, right, and bottom of all of these elements, and the label, it kind of looks like it's a part of the whole input. The next thing we want to do is style the button here. So we're going to go down here and we're going to style the input type, and that would be submit. And what we're going to do is say background. We're going to just clean it up and just reset it back to nothing. So background none. We're going to say border none. And now what we want to do is actually include a background image in the button to make it have one of those kind of glossy button looks. So we're going to use this button background here. We're going to repeat it along the x-axis so that it can stretch out as long as we want. And it's a tileable image, so it's seamless once you tile it horizontally. So for here, we need to say after background none, you can establish the background again and say background URL images button background. And so we'll want to repeat X. This image is actually 10 by 40 pixels, so it means we need it to be 40 pixels high. So let's make this element height 40 pixels. Let's see what that looks like. There we go. It's getting there. And now we want to add some padding to it. Because we're repeating this on the x-axis, we can have it be as wide as we want, and we'd never run out of background image. So let's just give it some padding on the left and right, because remember, if you add it to the top and bottom, you will now add to the height. Okay, I'm going to say 0 on the top and bottom, and let's go for 40 pixels on the left and right. And let's just give it a bit of a border, because right now there is no border, and it kind of doesn't have a lot of contrast between the background. So let's give it a border. Well, we have a border property there already, so why don't we just style that border, solid 1 pixel, 777. There we go. This should do it. Now I want to change the font color here of the button. I don't like the black. I want it to be white. Color, white. Right now there is no the browser's not giving me any feedback, visual feedback, that this is a button at all. So I want to change the cursor to a hand pointer. So you can do that by adding the hover pseudo class, and I'll show you what that is. And this is a pseudo class. So we are hovering on this element. And in fact, you can add the pseudo class to any element and style it, because the browser does know when you hover over something. So I want to change the cursor. This is the property, and you could change it to all of these different values. And I want it to be pointer, and that will look like so. There we go. Now we have feedback, but I want the button to do something too. So let's say border solid 1 pixel. And in fact, I don't have to do the full thing because it's already established as solid 1 pixel. I could just say border color and just change the color and not change the other values. Let's go for a darker border color, and that will change the border color when I hover. And you can see it's very subtle, but it works. And I can also add the active state. So I'm just going to copy this right here. Kind of like a link, I'm going to add the active, which means when you are pressed down on the element. So I will say border color, and I'll make it even darker. Let's just go for almost black. And you can see that it does change a slight, it's very, very subtle. And it also has this outline here, and that's just more visual feedback that is built into the browser. You can turn that off, but it's not recommended because it's visual feedback for people with visual impairment. And it's good practice to leave. Or you can style it differently using the outline property, like so. I'm going to use outline color, and let's just go for red, just to see. And there you go. And now the other thing that I want to show you here is in the text area, I can drag this and resize it, but it's kind of funny because everything kind of goes a little wonky, because what's happening is I'm increasing the size of the parent element, the field set, because it's needing to adjust to account for the bigger text area. And everything else, because it's 50%, is calculated as you move the cursor. So it's just kind of a weird interaction. So I want to turn that off. You can actually turn off the resizable element in your text area. All you need to do is select your text area. I'm just going to select it up here after our grouping selector. And I'm going to say resize none. And now you cannot resize that element. Pretty cool. So that's how you style forms. So there's a lot that you can play around with, and it might be cool for you to just play around a little bit more with your CSS to see what you can come up with.